Well, what are we supposed to do then? What in the world are we supposed to do? You know what we should do? We should do the thing that pleases Allah the most, and the thing that kuffar who hate Islam hate the most. The thing that Allah loves the most, the thing that the kuffar hate the most. There's a phrase about that in Surah Al-Fath. Allah describes the Prophet ﷺ as a farmer. He says, يُعْجِبُ الزُّرَّاعَ لِيَغِيظَ بِهِمُ الْكُفَّارِ. The farmer is impressed with the crop, and as the crop cultivates and grows, it angers the kuffar. It angers the disbelievers. Why is this crop growing and maturing? Why is it maturing? What is the maturity of the crop that the Prophet ﷺ raised? Study that ayah carefully and you'll find it's how he cultivated his companions, radiyallahu anhum ajma'in. The Quran was flowing through their veins. They understood what this worldview is and they stood with it with confidence. This is the time for you and me to show how much Islam is an inseparable part of our identity. And an inseparable part of our identity for generations to come. If you're somebody who was barely praying, you should say, you know what? Because you hate my Islam so much, now I'm going to pray 5 times. You were thinking about hijab, you're not sure about, you know what? Because you hate Islam so much, and because you want me to let it go, now I'm going to wear it even more. Now I'll put it on. I was thinking about my beard. Nope, now it's coming. Because I will offend you with what makes Allah happy. What brings me closer to my Prophet. I will offend you with it. You like offending him? Oh, I love offending you when you hate him. I'll offend you by deepening my roots in this book. I'll offend you by completely transforming how I think about educating myself. How I think about educating my children. I will, at least in my family, I'll change the trajectory of what kind of Muslims we look like in 10 years. How educated we are. How strong we are in our faith. I will do that for my family. I'll do that for my community. You want all of these acts of provocation, what's the purpose of them? The purpose of them is to say these people don't belong in our society. So let's just show how crazy they are so we can find some kind of legislative way or social pressure way of getting rid of them, or scare them enough so that they look more French and less Muslim. They become more like us and less like themselves. Once we can accomplish that, then we'll be okay. Because if you look like us and act like us and basically accept cultural enslavement, right? Because your ideas are offensive, ours are, the progression of the human race. So if you look at the world the way we do, then you have finally joined the rest of us in civilization. Because you backwards people need to get with the program, right? Well, you know what? Why is it that it's not time that we demonstrate that the most intelligent human beings, the most civilized human beings, the most balanced human beings, the most mature human beings are people who carry this faith? That we're the most stable of them all. It doesn't matter what society we go to, we are its biggest assets because of how we carry ourselves. We don't have to prove ourselves to anybody. We don't have to, the speeches aren't going to do that. Press releases aren't going to do that. Articles aren't going to do that. Videos aren't going to do that. You know who's going to do that? The way you carry yourself, the way you run your business, the way you start institutions. I would argue that Muslims need to now, the ayah I read to you from Surah Al-Ra'd is a blueprint. Quran was offensive. It was offensive. Why was it offensive? Because it was going inside the hearts. If the Quran sitting on a shelf is not offensive to anyone. Rasulullah is not offensive to anyone because he's a figure in history. He's gone. Why are these things offensive? Well, there's a legitimate reason they're offensive, and there's an evil reason they're offensive. Let's be honest about that too. The legitimate reason these things are offensive is because Muslims misrepresent them, and they engage in corruption, evil, alienation. They engage in all kinds of things that are anti-Islam in the name of Islam. And that's when non-Muslims see that and say, this is what their religion is? This is what they want? They're a plague on our society. And you know what? When Muslims act a certain way, they do act like a plague on society. That's a fact too. But there's another reason. There's plenty of Muslims that are not a plague on society. There's a vast majority of Muslims that are an asset to any society. They're a source of goodness in any society. They're a source of justice in any society, fairness in any society. Those Muslims that are in that now, they need to be stronger than they ever have been. They need to toughen up like they never have before. I'm reminded of Hamza radiallahu anhu, who wasn't even Muslim. But when he found out his prophet, his nephew's been offended, he's like, oh yeah? Well, I'm Muslim now. I was kind of thinking, no, now what? Now what? It's time for the now what response from the entire Muslim community, from the entire Muslim world. And the last thing I want to tell you, and there's lots to talk about here, but like what I really want to share with you is the game plan that they have for the world. And Islam is just one part of that for them. They're not out to get Islam. They don't want anything that gets in the way of the rapidly increasing and consumer culture, where all of you are just there. You live. Your existence is there to buy products, and to to be materialistic consumers. That's all you are numbers. That's all you are. You mean nothing else. The worldview we have, the way we look at society, ourselves, the way we look at truth, it represents a problem because we're not materialistic in that when we're not sheep. We're independent thinkers. We're analytical. We think about justice and injustice. It represents a problem. You know what? If those things are a problem, it's a problem for those who engage in injustice. It's time we showed everybody around us what Islam really is. You think they have propaganda machinery? They can put a cartoon on a government building and the world will get the wrong picture of who the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is? No. The world gets the wrong picture of who Rasulullah is. The world gets the wrong picture of about what the Quran is because the Muslims don't represent them properly. 1 in every 5 persons on this planet is a Muslim. We have plenty of spokespeople on this planet to represent what the Quran really is, what Islam really is. No force in media has that kind of following. Nobody has those kinds of numbers. We do. It's time we acted. We showed what it was. We stood for it. We spoke of it. We spoke of it. I talk about the Quran. I talk about Rasulullah with anybody I deal with, any business I do. You know, I just had somebody do some work on our campus, non-Muslim guy. I don't preach Islam to them, but you know what? Any chance I get. So I say, hey, I forgot to send you an invoice. But payment was due last week. And I immediately write back to him, man, our teaching is, our Prophet told us, before the sweat dries up, you should pay the worker. We'll take care of it right away. And he just writes back, man, I wish other people followed this teaching. Right? This is what we got to do now. We have to introduce the Prophet ﷺ with the way we do business. We have to introduce the Prophet ﷺ and the Quran with the way we carry ourselves in society. We are now its ambassadors. Stop thinking that governments will come in and help. Stop thinking that billionaires will come in and help. Stop thinking that media organizations will come in and help. You are the media. I'm the media. And we've got to do what does not dissuade us from this nonsense. These people, these attacks on the Prophet ﷺ, these attacks on the Quran will never get rid of the Quran. They will never reduce the status of the Prophet ﷺ. Never. What they will do is they will desensitize us over time because we'll start thinking, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? Right? And everything we do, nothing changes because we're back in the same situation. When a person tries to do something and they end up in the same situation, over time, they just say, what's the point, right? What's their biggest success? We become hopeless. But if you're in the middle of planting a seed and people are distracting you, and then you're still planting a seed and they say, what are you doing? It's not even a tree yet. And you're not bothered by it. You're just watering the soil because these people that want to keep this place a desert, when that tree comes out and it won't go anywhere and its fruits keep coming out, then maybe our response is a slow response. It's a measured response. It's a Quranic response. The ayah I read to you in Surah Al-Ra'd, and I'll end with it, is Salat awdiyatun biqadriha. Man, you know how Allah describes the coming of the Quran in Mecca? Allah says Allah sent water from the sky and the valleys got flooded. The valleys got flooded. You know what that is an image of? Quran came from the sky and Mecca got flooded. People even who hated Islam knew about the Quran now. They couldn't get it out of their head. Wallahu ala kulli shay'in qadir. Wallahu ghafurur rahim. Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum. There are phrases in the Quran that got repeated so much, they became coined phrases in Makkah. Even the mushrikun are like, how is this happening? Why is this happening? How do we put a stop to it? You think Rasulullah was offensive? The kindest human being that ever lived? Rahmatan lil alameen? The people that they trusted, Sadiq and Ameen, they hated him so much, right? You know what that means? There's nothing wrong with you. You could be the nicest person. You could be the kindest person. You could be the one looking out for them more than anyone else. But once you stand by this book, you are public enemy number one. This is unpopular. This is against our society. This is uncivil. This is a threat. Whether it's a threat or not is not even the point. And when some will act in that evil way that some have, to wreak havoc on the rest of the community, then all they needed was that justification to be able to label everybody else. And now you're too busy unlabeling yourself, and I'm too busy unlabeling myself. No, we're not those crazy people. No, Islam doesn't say that. No, Islam hasn't said that for 1.5 million. Read. No scholar has said that. Muslims have been a part of the civilization of Europe, of Africa, of Asia, continents. Islamic scholarship isn't Arab scholarship. It's an international, multi-civilizational, scholarship that has thrived alongside Jewish and Christian communities and Hindu communities and Buddhist communities for centuries upon centuries upon centuries. There's a history. And for us to think that somehow we have to either we have to get on the back foot and apologize for being Muslim, or we have to, justify the insanity. As if Allah does not give us a response. We need to stop being reactive. Somebody needs to say something. Stop thinking like that. What is that going to do? I'm talking to you like if you and I were sitting in a restaurant together and at 6 feet apart, and you're telling me, what are we supposed to do? Why don't you issue a statement? Okay, I'll issue a statement. Then what? What's going to happen? You're going to read this statement and say, oh, he issued a statement. Oh, we're okay now. This is how we think now? This is our response? Is that what Allah Azza wa Jalla expects from us? Is that what He wants from us? Show the strength of Islam with how you live. You live. This is a battle for the heart and mind of the individual. Don't forget that. That's the real battle. That's the real battle. And that, it doesn't matter if you live in Europe. It doesn't matter if you're in Africa. It doesn't matter. And by the way, let's face the hypocrisy. It doesn't matter if you're in a Muslim country where you can get fired for not going to the Christmas party, because that's a reality in the Muslim world too. Because you're not getting with the program. This is not just the Westerners trying to Westernize Islam. Please. There are plenty of people in plenty of continents other than Europe, Muslims, that are more enslaved to Western domination in their head than even politically. And they're imposing that will onto society. They're imposing that onto society. Whose slave are you? Whose slave are you? You have to really ask yourself that question. What is your life supposed to mean? How will you make the power and the beauty and the universal messaging of this religion be seen for what it really is? Just for what it represents in reality. How am I going to do that? How are you going to do that? When we put our heads down and we put ourselves to work like that, then the noise will come and go. I read that ayah, I keep referring to it. I didn't even get through the whole ayah, but I'll just one thing I'll mention. Al-labibu min al-isharati yafhamu. In Urdu they say aqalmand ke liye ishara kafi hai. A smart person can take a hint. A smart person can take it. What does Allah say? فَأَمَّا الزَّبَدُ. He says, فَأَمَّا الزَّبَدُ فَيَذْهَبُ جُفَاءً فَأَمَّا مَا يَنْفَعُ النَّاسَ فَيَمْكُثُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Let this part sink inside you like rain sinks inside the ground. Listen to what Allah says. He says, as for froth, you know what froth is? When rain comes, there are pebbles on the ground, dried leaves on the ground, twigs on the ground. They're basically dirt. They're dirty. What does flood water do? It washes it away, right? Allah says, as for the froth, and you know when water foams up, it's also called zabad. You know when flood waters foam up and bubbly and dirty? That's called zabad. He says, as for that foam, it shall wash away. And as for what benefits people, will go deep inside the soil. What's he talking about? When there's words being said, there's words being said by people. There's words being written by people. But many of those words are nothing but what? It's froth. It'll come, it'll look like it's a flood, but it's just dirty. It'll get washed away. And the thing that will remain is the water that goes deep inside the earth, and what will produce trees and life will be produced. Understand the difference between the power of the word of Allah and the filthy words of people. These people's words will come and go and they will disappear. They will have no mark in history. They will have no impact in the world. And we have what can transform the world. Transform it. Completely transform your world and the world around you. Transform your business. Transform your school. Transform your neighborhood. But we want to go top down. We want the governments to change. We want civilization to change. Us versus them. No. Plant a seed. Plant a seed. Let its shade fall on the believer and the disbeliever. Let even the one who never knew what to believe feel its shade and eat of its fruit and say, wow, how come so people were yelling at you because you were planting that tree? I want to join the farm. I want to be part of that garden. Become that. Seriously contemplate what I'm trying to get across, and I pray I have some clarity in what I'm trying to get across. We need to stop thinking that our angry outbursts, our momentary outbursts, are some kind of a solution, because they're not. Yes, you can have legitimate, within legal means, responses, reactions, letters, I even recommend lawsuits. I even recommend it. You don't think those kinds of cartoons are traumatic to children? That's not offensive to children? You don't think that hurts their psyche? And we shouldn't stand up for the mental health, at least, of our children? These are not worth legal action? Absolutely they are. Absolutely. No way around it. Take all of those actions, but understand something. Those are just reactions. That's not the action needed, that's the reaction for the time being. The real action needed is for this ummah to wake up, to actually be someone that Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam can make shafa'ah for on Judgment Day. These are the people who carried my word. فَلْيُبَلِّغِ الشَّاهِدَ الْغَائِبِ. Let the one who's here deliver it to the one who's not here. Well, you know what? Ain't nobody here. We're here now. We got to deliver it. We got to stand for it. You really love your Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Then take on his mission. Represent it. You really love your Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Let me try to be more like him and be proud of being like him. Stand by it. And from there, Allah's help will come. From there, these challenges will come and they will fall off like froth. And what stays deep inside will make us firm. وَثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَنَا وَانْصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. Make our feet firm and aid us against those who disbelieve. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us a sense of our responsibility to Allah and His Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. May Allah Azza wa Jal never allow our love and our respect and our honor for our beloved Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to be decreased. May Allah Azza wa Jal never allow these people's failed attempts at dishonoring the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to make their way into our hearts. And may Allah Azza wa Jal make us truly the defenders of the nobility and the legacy of Muhammadur Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the word